Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Week in Review. This show is being recorded on March 27, 2023. I'm Asbed Bedrossian, and I'm here with Hovik Manucharyan, and here are the major topics we'll touch on today. Over the weekend, Azerbaijan blatantly broke the November 9, 2020 agreement and moved their forces into Artsakh territory. We're also going to talk about the state of the Armenian-Azerbaijani negotiations and what it means that these negotiations keep bouncing between Eastern and Western platforms. To talk about these issues, we have with us Benyamin Poghosyan, who is the chairman of the Yerevan-based think tank Center for Political and Economic Strategic Studies. Hello and welcome, Benyamin. Great to have you back on the show.
Hello, Benjamin.
Thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Same here. Okay, let's dive into our first topic. Over the weekend, Azerbaijan blatantly violated the November 9, 2020 agreement, which it co-signed with Armenia and Russia by unilaterally advancing its armed forces into the territory of Artsakh. The Russians blamed Azerbaijan for this violation. I mean, there was no doubt about it. The aim of the incursion was a dirt road which was allegedly used to bypass the Azeri blockade of Artsakh since December 12, 2022. Additionally, Artsakh has reported that its civilians have been targeted in the regions of Marduni, Talabart, and Shosh. Benjamin, we're going to talk about negotiations in greater detail in a moment. Do you think that these violations and terroristic actions by Azerbaijan are a sign that the negotiations with Armenia are not proceeding along Aliyev's stated tenet that all Armenia has got to do to achieve peace is to agree to all Azeri conditions?
And Benjamin, before, and maybe also explain to us what the conditions from Azerbaijan are, if they are defined.
Okay, maybe it's easier to answer the second part than first part, because frankly speaking, it is very challenging to understand what's going on in negotiations, because according to public statements, we see that almost on a daily basis, Armenia and Azerbaijan, they are publishing very harsh statements, criticizing and accusing each other on everything. Like Aliyev says something, Armenian Ministry of Foreign Affairs answers, and Azerbaijan Ministry of Foreign Affairs answers. Pashinyan says something, Azerbaijani Ministry of Foreign Affairs answers. And if you look into these public statements, you think that, okay, these guys are too far from any peace agreement, and they are much closer to the next war. But then we hear a statement from U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken that, okay, sides are very close to signing a peace agreement. So because we do not have insider information what's going on there, we only know that from December 2022, Armenia and Azerbaijan entered into some digital diplomacy, which reminds me or resembles submission of academic paper to the peer-reviewed journal. When you are submitting papers, then you are receiving some comments and suggestions by track change. You make some amendments, send again receiving the new suggestions for new amendments. But the interesting issue is here that if it's a submission of academic paper to a peer-reviewed journal, author is one person, reviewers are another persons. In this case, authors and reviewers are the same. Like the same people write something, and then the same people review something.
To me, this reminds me of the Hayastan mailing list in the 1990s.
Yes. So yes, like as far as I understand, really, like we are putting some suggestions by track change, then Azerbaijan delete everything which we put and add something. Then we delete what Azerbaijan put and we add something, and this process can continue for forever. But this is public. But of course, there is also non-public part, and maybe we may assume that foreign high-level officials, including U.S. Secretary of State, knows much more about this like clandestine processes than we. And if he says that, okay, Armenia and Azerbaijan are close to signing a peace agreement, so it's very challenging.
Okay, so what are Azerbaijan's tactical objectives in these ground gains on the situation in Artsakh then?
Oh, I believe Azerbaijani goal is clear to raise more and more tensions inside Nagorno-Karabakh, because at the end of the day, this highway or road or path, which was like alternative way, which connects Stepanakert to Lisagor, it was used somehow to transport some humanitarian goods, at least some basic food, from Armenia to Nagorno-Karabakh. And by de facto closing this alternative road, by advancing and de facto having a far control over this road, Azerbaijan simply transforms this blockade into complete blockade. because currently the main highway is closed by Azerbaijanis, and this alternative road, which of course was used very rarely, but at the end of the day, it allowed to transport some basic humanitarian goods from Armenia to Nagorno-Karabakh. This is also now under Azerbaijani control. It's not physical control, at least under Azerbaijani fire control, which means that the road cannot be used, or at least you should negotiate with Azerbaijanis and ask permission to use also this road, which means that theoretically, if Azerbaijan decides, it can simply completely blockade Nagorno-Karabakh, not allowing even a single truck to enter Nagorno-Karabakh. Maybe some exceptions for Russian peacekeepers. And definitely this will create much more tensions in Nagorno-Karabakh regarding the food scarcity and etc. etc. And it will send a clear message to Armenia that, okay, guys, you are in a situation when simply there is no exits. And okay, Aza accept our suggestion, because today again, officially Azerbaijan invited, as they are telling, the representatives of Armenian community of Azerbaijan to Baku to discuss some reintegration issues and also some infrastructure issues in Nagorno-Karabakh. So Azerbaijani position is very clear. You are going to suffer, and you are going to suffer very badly if you are not going to accept our vision, which means Nagorno-Karabakh is part of Azerbaijan without any status, without any international presence, without any guarantees. And they understand that if they will screw the situation more and more, then at the end of the day, even there could be some burst of anger in Stepanakert, because at the end of the day, people simply will have nothing to eat, and then they will either pour their anger against, I don't know, current authorities, including President Aray Karutunyan, or maybe against Russian peacekeepers who are not opening the road, or maybe both. But at the end of the day, this could create very tense and even chaotic situation in Nagorno-Karabakh. So message is very clear that, okay, guys, game is over. So accept our conditions, or you are going to suffer more and more. At the end of the day, you either will accept our conditions, or it will be very bad situation for you, or very bad outcomes.
Benjamin, the events in Artsakh came after a week of instability, stable instability, if I can say that word, created by Azerbaijan, or constant instability to be more precise. Against the backdrop of continuous shooting at civilians, the violence was then transferred to Armenia proper. An Armenian soldier was killed in Yeras earlier in the week, I believe. There was also a peculiar incident reported where an Armenian serviceman was reported to have lost his way, resulting in a search and rescue operation by Armenia, as well as apparently the Russian border guards that are stationed there. The Russian soldiers then apparently came under fire from Azerbaijanis, despite having previous consent to search for the missing serviceman. And later, there were reports that the two Russians received medical treatment in an Armenian hospital for wounds received during that operation. However, the hospital's spokesperson was quick to rule out gunshots as the cause of the injury and as a cause of the visit to the hospital. And then the Armenian Defense Ministry and the Russian Defense Ministry remained silent on this incident to date. What went on? What is your assessment of what took place? And I guess, we may know this, but what is the reason for Russia's silence?
Okay, first of all, as far as this war continues in Ukraine in the current pace, when there is no breakthrough from any side, and there are a lot of assessments that this type of warfare can continue for years, like bringing us back to the First World War type of military hostilities, I believe Azerbaijan become bolder and bolder, understanding that first, Russia is not as scarcity, or they should not be afraid of Russia, first. Second, that maybe there will be growing Russian dependence on Turkey. So this is one reason or one factor which contributes to this ugly behavior of Azerbaijan. And also, but more strategically, what Azerbaijan is telling to both Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia, they are telling, okay, guys, you are speaking about international presence in Nagorno-Karabakh, or the necessity of international presence in Nagorno-Karabakh to guarantee rights and security of Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh. They are saying, okay, first, we are not going to accept this because Nagorno-Karabakh is Azerbaijan, and we don't believe that we need international presence in Azerbaijan to guarantee rights of security of any Azerbaijani citizens regarding of its ethnic origin. And second, they are telling that at the end of the day, if Armenia still believes that there should be an international presence in Azerbaijan to secure rights of Armenians living in Azerbaijan, this can happen only in one case, if Armenia agrees to accept hundreds of thousands of Azerbaijanis into Armenia, like in Yerevan, in, I don't know, Masis, in Vaik, in Amasya, in Vardenis, and etc. And Armenia agrees to international presence to guarantee rights of Azerbaijanis in Armenia. Of course, we all understand this is a no-fail, but from Azerbaijani point of view, they are telling, okay, look, what you are demanding in Nagorno-Karabakh will result in the deadlocking negotiation, because then we will demand international guarantees or international presence in Armenia for securing the Azerbaijani rights, and this will lead nowhere. But so it means that there will be no peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. But from their perspective, no peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Peace agreement according to which Armenia will recognize that Karabakh is Azerbaijan. It means that from their logic that Armenia is not going to recognize territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. And they are telling, okay, in that case, we are not going to recognize territorial integrity of Armenia. We will not recognize that Syunik, Gegharkunik, Vayodor are part of Armenia. And then at the end of the day, there will be no peace, and there will be some escalations or ups and downs. Also depends on regional geopolitics. So their offer to Armenia, or their vision, is very clear. Either Armenia signs peace agreement, accepting that there is no Nagorno-Karabakh and there will be no international presence and guarantees for Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh, or there will be no peace agreement. Azerbaijan will not recognize territorial integrity of Armenia, telling that Syunik, Vayodor, Gegharkunik are not Armenia. And because of these territorial demands and also absence of peace agreement, situation will be volatile and there will be ups and downs in escalations. The problem is that Azerbaijan believes that this scenario is more favorable for them than for Armenia. So they believe that at the end of the day, Armenia will do everything to avoid this scenario. And the only option to avoid this scenario is, again, sign peace agreement with Azerbaijan, accepting that there is no Nagorno-Karabakh, there is only Karabakh economic region, and drop any demand of international presence or international guarantees for rights and security of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. So we are in some kind of vicious circle.
As horrific as that idea sounds, I believe there were additional conditions, right? For instance, I believe Aliyev also talked about delimitation of borders based on Azerbaijan's conditions.
So here is also interesting. As far as I understand, Azerbaijani position, at least it's very difficult to understand because, okay, we hear a different statement from Azerbaijan expert community, from some NGOs like Western Azerbaijan and also Azerbaijani official position. But as far as it's possible to understand what Azerbaijan wants, they are telling, okay, Armenia signed the Prague statement in October 6, and Armenia signed also Sochi statement on October 31, 2022. And Armenia agrees to recognize Azerbaijan territorial integrity within December 1991 Almaty Declaration. Azerbaijan reads 1991 Almaty Declaration this way, that administrative borders of former Soviet republics, including Soviet Azerbaijan, became the internationally recognized borders. They are telling that, okay, Nagorno-Karabakh was within administrative borders of Soviet Azerbaijan. So, according to Almaty Declaration, and this is Azerbaijan interpretation, according to Almaty Declaration, Nagorno-Karabakh automatically became part of Azerbaijan internationally recognized borders. So, Armenia signed two statements, October 6, 2022, October 31, 2022, recognizing Azerbaijani's territorial integrity based on Almaty Declaration, which means based on Soviet Azerbaijan administrative borders. But they are telling, oh, okay, if you did this, then please, what's the problem? Why you are not signing a peace agreement telling that the Nagorno-Karabakh is part of Azerbaijan? But if you simply sign this statement, but you are not doing this, it means that you are not accepting Almaty Declaration. And from their logic, if Armenia is not going to accept Almaty Declaration, which recognizes borders of former administrative borders of former Soviet republics as international borders, then they say, okay, if you don't accept this, we also will not accept this, which means that we also will not recognize territorial integrity of Armenia within administrative borders of Soviet Armenia. And in that case, the limitation should be based on what? Azerbaijan said on our condition, but what are Azerbaijani conditions? Azerbaijani conditions is very clear. Borders will be delimited along the line where actual Azerbaijani troops will be stationed. So from this logic, this 200 square kilometer of territory, which they took from Armenia during the aggressions in May, November 2021 and September 2022, from this logic, this 200 square kilometer automatically are Azerbaijan. And if Azerbaijan will launch another aggressions and will occupy more territories from Armenia, this also will be automatically become Azerbaijan, because they are telling, okay, if you are not going to recognize Karabakh as a part of Azerbaijan, it means that you are not recognizing our territorial integrity within Soviet Azerbaijan administrative borders, then we are not going to recognize Armenia's territorial integrity within Soviet Armenia administrative borders, which means that, okay, we should start delimitation from scratch or from zero. And from their perspective, what does it mean from zero? Okay, we will take into account the so-called LAC, actual line of actual control. And they say, okay, because we are stronger, then we will launch more attacks, we will take more territories, and every new taken territory will automatically become part of Azerbaijan because it will remove the line of actual control. So at least this is my understanding of Azerbaijani position. Like, okay, forget about Nagorno-Karabakh and forget about international presence to secure rights and security of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, or we will not recognize territorial integrity of Armenia. We'll start to speak about Syunik, Vayodor, Gelarkunik, and other regions of Armenia as part of Azerbaijan, and we will not recognize Armenia's territorial integrity within Soviet Armenia administrative borders. We will continue our attacks. We will take more territories, and at the end of the day, the limitation should be realized based on the actual deployment of troops. Like if Azerbaijani troops are currently deployed only, I don't know, maybe 2 kilometers from Jermuk, then the limitation should take place through this actual line of control.
Obviously, we recognize that what you're saying is Azerbaijan's position. A peace deal like this would be, to me, it seems like it would be the downfall of Armenia completely. What is, in your opinion, a sane move in terms of policy for Armenia in this situation?
Okay, frankly speaking, Armenia and especially Nagorno-Karabakh are in such a situation that is very challenging to offer any reliable path forward. One thing is clear that even if we will say, okay, now we are ready to satisfy all Azerbaijani demands, there are no guarantees that Aliyev will not put new demands, because at the end of the day, their demands are growing and growing. Like 1 or 2 years ago, immediately after the war, they have X demands, now they have Y demands, and there are no guarantees that even after the peace agreement, there will be no Z demands. And all this talk from Armenian government that we need international guarantees to secure the peace agreement in the current volatile international environment, when we are witnessing the transformation of global order from unipolar world to nobody knows to what world, but everybody knows that this transition will take decades. To speak about any international guarantee is not it's not realistic. Okay, which means that to satisfy Azerbaijani demands is a road to nowhere, or probably is a road to more Azerbaijani demands, because this process has no end. Like it's open-end negotiations. You will satisfy Azerbaijani demands, then Aliyev will say new demands, then Erivan Aliyev may say other demands, and this will end. Nobody knows when. Maybe this will end that, okay, I don't know, 1 million Azerbaijanis should come back to Yerevan, for example. Okay, so you are not going to do that, and definitely this is not a good policy option to say, okay, let's satisfy all Azerbaijani demands. And this Aliyev, frankly speaking, Aliyev mocked us in March 18 when he said that, okay, if Armenians want to live peacefully in 29,000 square kilometer of territories, by the way, simply deleting 800 square kilometer, simply, because the administrative borders of Soviet Armenia in 1989, it was 29,800 square kilometers, not 29,000 square kilometers. But like simply Aliyev just by one sentence already took 800 square kilometer territory of Armenia, simply mocking us. Okay, but what are the alternatives? Here we should understand alternatives about Armenia and alternatives about Nagorno-Karabakh. Obviously, the situation in Karabakh is very tough, and as I mentioned, now Azerbaijan has a far control about even this alternative, very complicated path from Stepanakert to Lelitsagor. This means the situation in Karabakh will become worse and worse. Obviously, Russians are not going to enter large-scale military clashes with Azerbaijan, because this may, at the end of the day, end with opening up a second front for Russia, and Russia will do everything to avoid this. Which means that yes, maybe Russians will not allow Azerbaijanis to enter Stepanakert, but they are not going to prevent them from taking one village there, one village here, to take additional heights. And at the end of the day, like Titan and Titans, the circle in around Nagorno-Karabakh. What can be done here, frankly speaking, is very difficult to say, because, okay, one option could be to say that, okay, Armenian army should enter from Goris to Lachin, like crash Azerbaijanis, and widen Lachin corridor from this, or first open Lachin corridor, which is now closed, and second widen the Lachin corridor, because actually we even don't have this 5-kilometer width of Lachin corridor. It's only highway, and highway is closed. But as far as I understand, this is not going to happen, because our armed forces are not in a position that we can somehow start new war against Azerbaijan and take back Berdor and Karvajar, or Lachin and Kelbajar. So if Armenia cannot do that, Russians are not going to prevent Azerbaijani crippling annexation, and West definitely is not going to stop Azerbaijani crippling annexation, because they are not going even to put sanctions on Azerbaijan for violating ICJ decision, International Court of Justice, while ICJ is a cornerstone of the so-called rules-based international order. And we see from the United States, from NATO, from EU, rules-based international order, Russia, China violate the rules-based international order. We should do everything to protect rules-based international order, but not Russia, China, these giants. Like tiny Azerbaijan violates, ignores ICJ decision, destroys rules-based international order, and we see zero real reaction from the West, because we all understand that statements, condemnations, calls, all this cost nothing. And as far as I understand, West is not going to do real things. They are not going even to threaten Azerbaijan with sanctions. I'm not speaking about putting sanctions. Definitely, they are not going to threaten Azerbaijan with sanctions.
So you can say that we can expect basically no physical help from anyone.
Frankly speaking, yes. Okay, we may expect that Russians will not allow Azerbaijani troops to enter Stepanakert, but definitely they are not going to prevent Azerbaijan to take one more village, to take another height, and etc. West is not going to do anything, because at least if there will be large-scale attack against Armenia, like September 2022, at least West may condemn, or maybe hint for some sanctions against Azerbaijan, because this is a internationally recognized territory of Armenia, and etc. etc. But for Karabakh, which West perceived as a part of Azerbaijan, they are telling, okay, of course, Azerbaijanis should not kill Armenians. Armenians should somehow live, but they should live as an Azerbaijani citizens, and other blah blah. But then the question may arise, what to do? So Russians are not going to prevent crippling annexation. West is not going to prevent crippling annexation. Armenia is not able to prevent crippling annexation. So this is the situation, and I have no good options, frankly speaking.
Okay, so Armenia continues to bounce around from platform to platform in its negotiations with Azerbaijan. For most of the latter half of 2022, it was the Brussels platform under the auspices of the EU, whether they met in Brussels or Prague or whatever. In December 2022, Armenia, quote-unquote, postponed the trilateral meeting in Moscow, where Mirzoyan was going to meet with Lavrov and Bayramov, while inviting 100 EU observers to come to Armenia and observe its borders with Azerbaijan, despite warnings from Russia, Iran, and Azerbaijan that this would damage regional stability. So one would think at this point that the Western platform is working according to Pashinyan's desire. But last Monday, Ararat Mirzoyan met with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov in Moscow. Benjamin, what do you think were the reasons for this visit to Moscow, and what was achieved there?
Frankly speaking, it's complicated, because yes, it seems that Armenia preferred the Western format or platform like Brussels and Washington. But for example, during his March 14 press conference, Pashinyan criticized Brussels platform, telling that, okay, we agreed on more than 10 strategic things in 4 meetings at Brussels platform. Nothing have been realized, and as Pashinyan said, he did not see any reason to continue negotiations in Brussels platform and reach more agreements, as far as already reached agreements are not going to realize or implemented. So it appears that now Armenia is not satisfied also with Brussels platform. And my understanding is that the Armenia's decision or desire to involve French President Macron into the Brussels format and transform it from 1+2, like Michel Pashinyan Aliyev, into 2+2, Michel Macron Pashinyan Aliyev, was a result of Armenia's concerns or somehow dissatisfaction from Brussels format. Regarding Washington format, I'm not even sure we can clearly speak about Washington platform or Washington format, because the single meeting purely in the Washington format was September 27, 2022, meeting between Secretary of Security Council Armen Grigoryan and top foreign policy to President Aliyev Hikmet Ajiyev, where they somehow agreed to sign a peace agreement until the end of 2022. The only outcome was this perceived agreement, but then immediately Armen Grigoryan and Hikmet Ajiyev started to blame each other for lying. Armen Grigoryan said that Hikmet Ajiyev agreed on the international mechanism for Azerbaijan Nagorno-Karabakh negotiations. Hikmet Ajiyev publicly stated that Armen Grigoryan was lying. He never agreed to this. Then Armen Grigoryan said that no, Hikmet Ajiyev was lying, and then this format was blown up. Now, regarding Arad Mirzoyan's visit to Moscow, definitely Russia still is a strong player in South Caucasus and will remain a strong player despite all his problems in Ukraine and his terrible confrontation with the West. But at the end of the day, even West was not able to destroy Russian economy. With all this huge level of sanctions, many in West were sure that this will ruin Russian economy. Millions of people will start to starving. They will pour into the streets of Moscow and St. Petersburg, will kick out Putin, bring more liberal leader into Russia, who will join US for fight against China, probably. But as we see, this is most probably this is not going to happen. So regarding the meeting in Moscow, so what Lavrov basically said, he said that, okay, guys, Armenia signed the Prague statement and also Sochi statement, accepted Azerbaijani territorial integrity within Soviet Azerbaijan administrative borders, according to Almaty Declaration. But still, we believe that even if Nagorno-Karabakh is Azerbaijan, then rights of Armenians should be protected, and they should be protected based on some special agreements and some special guarantees. And Lavrov hinted that, for example, okay, there was a Minsk agreement which provided special guarantees to Russians living in Donetsk and Lugansk within
cultural
Ukraine.
autonomies and things like
Yes,
that.
but Ukraine violated Minsk agreement or even didn't realize it. And also there was an agreement between Serbia and Kosovo about granting some rights to the Serbs living in Kosovo. But again, Kosovo violated this agreement. So Lavrov hinted that definitely, first, we need some agreements which will protect and fix the several rights of Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh, even Nagorno-Karabakh is a part of Azerbaijan. And second primary issue is who is going to guarantee this. And Lavrov hinted that, okay, West is not able to guarantee or does not want to guarantee because, yes, West failed to force Ukraine to realize Minsk agreements. And currently, both Angela Merkel and also François Hollande publicly stated that, yes, Minsk agreement, it was scam. And the main idea was to provide Ukraine time to prepare its army and then take Donbass by force. And also, we see that West failed to force Kosovo to accept or to realize this agreement and provide Serbs living in Kosovo with those guarantees or rights which were secured through this agreement. And I believe the Lavrov hint was that, okay, guys, first, there should be some special agreement which will secure rights of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. Of course, Nagorno-Karabakh is part of Azerbaijan, but special rights. And second, because we have examples when West failed to enforce the realization of such agreement, it's Russia. It's only Russia which can guarantee the realization of such agreements, which was a hint that, okay, to be able to guarantee the realization of potential agreement about providing special rights to Nagorno-Karabakh Armenians, the only guarantee could be the extension of deployment of Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh beyond November 2025. At least this is my understanding.
Can you tell us if these comparisons between the cases of Artsakh and Donbass, Kosovo, valid? And also, essentially, let's get to the bottom of this issue. What is the carrot that Russia is dangling in front of Armenia by mentioning Donbass and Kosovo?
From legal point of view, I believe there could be Okay, definitely there are a lot of differences because at the end of the day, Karabakh declared its independence based on the Soviet Union law at the time when Soviet Union still exists. I mean,
Yes.
Karabakh declared independence in September 2, 1991, and then organized referendum in December 10, 1991, while Soviet Union ceased its existence in December 21, 1991, when this Almaty Declaration was signed. While, for example, for Kosovo, there was even no referendum. Like Kosovo was put on the UN mandate in 1999 after NATO bombed Serbia, and then in 2008, I believe in February, it unilaterally declared its independence. Regarding the Donetsk and Lugansk, we all remember the history when there was a new color revolution in Ukraine, or revolution of dignity, or as Russians are telling, coup d'etat, or whatever you may call, in February 2014. Then in Donetsk and Lugansk, they organized a referendum, declared their independence, but again, this was not according to Ukrainian law. So in this case, definitely Karabakh is different because what Karabakh did, it was fully in line with Soviet Union laws, and Karabakh at that time was part of Soviet Union. So from legal point of view, of course, there are differences between Nagorno-Karabakh and Kosovo, between Nagorno-Karabakh and DNR, or between Nagorno-Karabakh and LNR. Maybe also there are some similarities. I'm not an expert in international law to clearly say that, okay, there's a 10% similarities, 90% differences, or vice
Right.
versa. But here, for us, I believe the important thing is that at the end of the day, after 2020 war, it's clear that in current circumstances, when Nagorno-Karabakh lost not only territories outside former Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous region, but also 30% of Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous region, and it has only one highway connecting with Armenia, which was not secure because we see the more than 100 days of uh, blockade, and it's fully encircled by Azerbaijan. In current circumstances, to say that okay, international community should recognize the independence of Nagorno-Karabakh, okay, it's does not sound serious. But what sounds serious is to say to the international community and to everyone that look, guys, we all understand that due to the 35 years of huge anti-Armenian propaganda in Azerbaijan, which depicts all Armenians as an enemy of Azerbaijanis, who organized genocide against Azerbaijanis and perpetrated all other terrible crimes. So, as average Azerbaijani views Armenians in general and Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh as an enemy. And this is objective reality, and this is a result of 35 years of anti-Armenian propaganda. So this is fact. I mean, no one can dispute this fact. And the second fact is that Azerbaijan is far from being a state which respects the right of its own citizens, ethnic Azerbaijanis, and also other ethnic minorities like Polish, Lesbian, and etc. And this is not Armenia's assessment. This is not Benyamin Poghosyan's assessment. This is assessment of all credible international organizations that Azerbaijan violates rights of its own citizens, both ethnic Azerbaijanis and other ethnic minorities. So these two factors, 35 years of anti-Armenian propaganda and huge hatred against Armenians, and second, Azerbaijan being an authoritarian state, brings us to the clear conclusion that Armenians cannot live under Azerbaijani jurisdiction simply as Azerbaijani citizens without strong international presence and without strong international mechanisms and guarantees to provide rights and securities for them. So I believe this narrative is very clear. This narrative is, no one can say this is a propaganda. This is a pure fact-based narrative, which means that we have all all base to claim that okay, any speculation, any calls or claims or any narratives that okay, let's forget about international presence in Nagorno-Karabakh, let's forget about international guarantees, let's simply give Armenians in Karabakh Azerbaijani passports and they will happily live as Azerbaijani citizens. This is a direct way to hard or soft ethnic cleansing, or a mix of hard and soft ethnic cleansing, which means that we can say that okay, guys, if anyone calls for ethnic cleansing, no problem. But if anyone is not happy with ethnic cleansing or does not feel comfortable with ethnic cleansing, and I'm not sure that anyone in West or even in Russia may feel comfortable with ethnic cleansing, or at least may state publicly that yes, no problem. Okay, let's be ethnic cleansing in of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, I don't care. No one can say it publicly. Even if in reality they don't care about Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, they are not able to say it publicly for different reasons. Which means that at the end of the day, I mean, there's a narrative that, okay, without international presence and international guarantees, or absence of international presence and international guarantees in Nagorno-Karabakh equals to ethnic cleansing. And again, no one can publicly feel comfortable with ethnic cleansing and say, okay, I have no problems. Okay, it's 120,000 people. Let them be ethnically cleansed. So in this context, what Lavrov said that yes, there should be fixed agreements about the rights and securities of Armenians, and there should be clear guarantees about rights and securities of Armenians. I believe these are positive signs for Armenia and for Nagorno-Karabakh in current circumstances. Of course, before September 27, 2020, we will say, no, this is complete disaster. No, this is a treason from Russia. This is 100% anti-Armenian propaganda and anti-Armenian narrative. All this would be true on September 26, 2020, but not on March 2023.
Even assuming that what you're saying is the logical move to move forward, it seems that there's very little consensus from the West in supporting, let's say, the Russian peacekeeping mission, the extension of it, and so forth. And then, like we're seeing that there's very little in terms of actual offers that come from the West, but in the midst of all this, we are also seeing some irrational, I would say, optimism from Pashinyan himself. Like, this is the same week where a soldier died. This is the same week that Azerbaijan occupied more territory. And Pashinyan goes on to say that, to quote him, there will be peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and it will be based on the joint official statements adopted at the highest level. There won't be a new escalation. The international community must strongly support this narrative. Very quickly, before we move on to our other topics, what is the source of Pashinyan's confidence? And do you think the West is offering more than it's publicly saying in terms of maybe allowing the extension of the Russian peacekeepers, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, I'm not sure that the West will be happy for extension of Russian peacekeepers, but our message both to, at least to the West, will be this. Okay, guys, if you are not happy with Russian presence, please force Azerbaijan to accept international presence, because currently Azerbaijan rejects international presence. So our message to the West will be this. If you don't want to see Russian presence in Nagorno-Karabakh beyond November 2025, but also you don't want to see ethnic cleansing, please force Azerbaijan to accept international presence. If you are not able to force Azerbaijan to accept international presence in Nagorno-Karabakh beyond November 2025, then at least don't demand the withdrawal of Russian peacekeepers, because again, this is a direct way to the ethnic cleansing of Armenians. Regarding the Prime Minister's confidence, I'm not sure, because, for example, maybe if not hour, but at least a day before his state Twitter post that there will be no escalation, Pashinyan was speaking that Azerbaijan is organizing or is going to organize genocide against Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh, and even he ordered Ministry of Foreign Affairs to start some procedures according to the UN Convention on Prevention of Genocide. So, frankly speaking, it's very difficult to for me to comment why, for example, on day X, our leadership was sure that Azerbaijan is going to organize a genocide, and genocide is not escalation. Genocide is escalation plus 10 times, because we all understand that there is a huge difference between escalation and genocide. Genocide is a crime against humanity, it's a terrible thing. So why, for example, on March 10, you are sure that Azerbaijan is going to organize genocide, but on March 11, you are sure that there will be even no escalation, is difficult to me to comment.
As if our conflicts around us were not enough, in December, Pashinyan's government made a decision to ratify the Rome Statute, which is the treaty that establishes the International Criminal Court. At that time, it was logical and reasonable because the ICC had a judgment against Azerbaijan. I don't know what that accepting the Rome Statute would have done for the implementation of that judgment, but essentially, once the Armenian government greenlit that proposal, then it went to the Constitutional Court, which this week also gave its okay. And now it's up to I believe, the Armenian parliament to ratify that. So that's the only next step remaining. And in the meantime, only 2 weeks ago, the ICC or the ICJ issued an international warrant to arrest the president of Armenia's ally, Russia, Vladimir Putin, as a war criminal. And just today, there was some news in RIA Novosti, in the Russian newspaper, quoting an unnamed source saying that the Russian MFA finds it absolutely unacceptable for Armenia to ratify the Rome Statute in the backdrop of the ICC arrest warrant against Putin. So, was this the right time to sort of jump in this bandwagon and try to adopt the Rome Statute? What are your thoughts about this development and the impact of it on Armenian and Russian relations?
Okay, I'm not sure this was the right time before arrest warrant for President Putin. Maybe it was right time because of ICC decisions, or maybe because of some chances of Armenia to sue some Azerbaijanis. Again, I'm not very familiar with ICC procedures, but theoretically, maybe it was a good decision to join ICC again before the arrest warrant. So if Armenia ratified this before arrest warrant, okay, we could say Russian, okay, how we can know that they are going to issue such a warrant. But after the warrant was issued against the president of the strategic ally of Armenia, who has very strong presence in Armenia, I'm not going to go into what does it mean Russia for Armenia and Russia for South Caucasus. Now, and I believe it will maybe Armenia will be the first country which will ratify this, if Armenia ratifies, which will ratify this status after the issue of arrest warrant for President Putin. Okay, I believe the basic logic, not even like a deep understanding of geopolitics, international relations, I don't know, Russian, Armenian history, whatever else. The basic logic sense, and especially given the very tough wording of today's the so-called unnamed or sources about unacceptable or very negative consequences for Armenian-Russian relations, I believe it's absolutely not time to do that.
And it's interesting also because the Constitutional Court in Armenia, which is sort of considered widely to be full of Pashinyan's allies, gave their okay this week. They could have, I think they had 6 months or something to deliberate, and previously they had decided that joining the ICC or ratifying the Rome Statute specifically was anti-constitutional based on the previous versions of the Constitution.
Yeah, I believe the one decision was made in 2004.
Yeah, at least they could delay it, and they didn't. So that sends another signal, I believe.
Regardless what was behind the decision of Constitutional Court, at the end of the day, the final say is up to Parliament, which means the final say is up to civil contract party, which means that final say is up to Prime Minister Pashinyan, because we all know that if Pashinyan wants something, because the 71 MPs vote for. If Pashinyan does not vote, they are not going to vote. So the final decision is up to Nicole Pashinyan, not up to Constitutional Court.
Okay, thank you, Benyamin. Let's wrap up our topics here. So now it's time for me to ask each of you if there's been something on your mind this past week that you would like to talk about. Benyamin, let me pick on you first. What's on your mind?
Okay, very short. I was thinking about, I was in India in early March 2023. It was a big geopolitical conference, but I'm not going to speak about geopolitics. I'm going to speak about my impressions from India, how dynamic this country was, how different this country was, because this was my first visit to India. I have been in China many times, and I have been in Europe and the United States, but interestingly, India was different both from Europe and also from China. And also immediately after India, I came to Germany, and really it was interesting to see like two extreme sides of dynamism, but a little bit chaotic, and also like very clear-cut, distinct line Germany. So my thought was, okay, how complicated and different the Earth is, despite all this globalization and despite all talk that globalization makes us closer to each other. Like we all drink Coca-Cola, I don't know, drive BMWs and wear like Levi's jeans, or I don't know, maybe Xiaomi smartphones, or I don't know what. But still, how different people, cultures, and civilizations are, and this really was impressive for me, especially jumping from India to Germany.
I agree with you. I think India is a fascinating country coming up, and I'm thankful that they are friendly with Armenia. Hovik, what's on your mind?
This past week was the 100th anniversary of the death of famous Armenian poet, writer Hovhannes Tumanyan, and it was very difficult to find any large-scale national coverage or national remembrance of the event. I just wanted to raise the topic. And if you're listening to this and have some time, maybe this is a good week to pick up a book from Hovik Manucharyan and read it again, because many of the things that he wrote about 100 years ago are still viable today.
Thank you, Hovik. All right. Let's leave it there for today. Thank you, Benyamin. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Asbed. Thank you, Hovik. Thank you for all the work which you are doing to spread also English language information both inside and but most importantly outside Armenia, what's going on in our region, in Armenia, especially in Nagorno-Karabakh. Your work is really appreciated, and it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Benyamin.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye.
Okay, that's the show. Stay in touch. We like to hear from our listeners. If you're not subscribed to our channels, please do so on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and on your favorite podcast platform. On behalf of everyone in the show, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.